one. This week on the big show, just as we thought we were out, the Delta variant is attempting to pull us back in. Mass dates are back in effect at theaters. How will this impact a shaky and uncertain recovery? Plus, Scarlett Johannsen is suing Marvel. How will streaming services impact the future of this business? Plus, we got Stillwater, Jungle Cruise, and The Green Knight dropping in theaters this weekend. Charles Kirkland Jr. and Wilson Morales join us as we discuss these and other issues on episode 465 of Keeping It Real with FilmGordon. Let's go. All right, gentlemen, and welcome to the latest episode, Keeping It Real with FilmGordon. I am Tim Gordon. We welcome back Wilson Morales and Charles Kirkland back to the hot seat. Man, it's a lot of stuff going on. It's a beautiful day. I can't speak for what's going on in New York. It is nice down here in the nation's capital and on the final weekend of July. Wilson, within 4 weeks, man, it's going to be Labor Day. Time for us to hit the first major film festival, well, actually not the first major film festival, but the first fall major film festival of the year, man. So how you feeling right now, Wilson?
Good. I take it one day at a time, one festival at a time, one movie or one project at a time. That being said, as you mentioned, it's the last weekend of July. As we enter August, there's a lot happening. You've got, as you mentioned, Jungle Cruise in theaters, Stillwater with Matt Damon. You got a small film called 9 Days, which played at Sundance in 2020 and got good reviews. And it stars Winston Duke playing in theaters. You've got The Green Knight starring Dev Patel out there. Some of these movies that played in theaters are now going to be showing on streaming services. For anybody who didn't get a chance to see it, Mr. Soul, an amazing documentary, is going to play on HBO Max starting August 1st. You've got the final episode of The Shy, season 4. People will be looking forward to seeing that. On Netflix, you have Resort to Love, a new rom-com starring Christina Milian that's on there. You've got, there's a movie that's playing on Shudder for those who have it, that played at a couple of festivals last year, and it's pretty good. It stars The Boy Behind the Door, starring Lonnie Chavis, I believe his name is. I could be wrong. The kid from This Is Us.
Yeah.
Out on Blu-ray is A Quiet Place, part 2 now. And then, like I said, mentioned, you've got a new series called, Johnson's, that's going to be on Bounce. So there's a lot that's happening towards the end of July and the beginning of August. It's like, hey, because I think people realize the fall is going to be huge. You got theaters coming back. You got people going back to school. So there's not going to be a lot of time for people to get back into watching either TV series or movies, even though, as you mentioned, the COVID is coming back slowly, but not necessarily, we don't know, depending on where you live at, so there's a lot going on. So everybody's trying to get as much as they can out of the summer.
Well, look, Wilson, I don't know. I mean, we'll play it by ear, but we've been down this road before. I don't see us shutting stuff down, but with mass mandates, I think there's also a level of comfortability about this. Earlier this week, we were back in studio for the first time in 16 months to do Around Town. And I was not cool at all. I sent them a note. I let them know when I was in the studio. I was like, I'm not mad cool with this, man. I don't know these people. I mean, you keep telling me that people...
Well, was everybody vaccinated?
Wilson, here we go again. Yes, people are saying that they're vaccinated, but Tim Gordon, didn't feel comfortable. So I let the producer know and the associate producer. They tagged me before I even got home. They were like, if you ain't comfortable, we can go back to Zoom. I'm like, I think we should go back to Zoom. I'm not mad cool right now because it ain't over. And I think the studios are starting to also get the message that it ain't over, because now you're seeing, as I said, new mask mandates coming back, studios having to rethink kind of what we're trying to do in the fall. I mean, Wilson, the market is only as good as people who are going to come out and support these films. And if you can't get the buy-in from the public, you got a problem. You can't force stuff on people if people aren't ready for it right now. So Charles, I'll let you comment, and then we'll go back to Wilson, because I think this is a key point for all of us in this on this call for what we have to do professionally over the next 6 months?
First of all, I want to give a shout out to the family of Gonzo. We lost another big time rapper in the business with Ice Cube, Tupac affiliate, back from the West Side in the rap group Caution. He shot and killed in Seattle just last night. So much love to the family. All that being said, as soon as Tim sent out that email to his producers, I sent out an email saying, if he's not comfortable, I'm comfortable. I'll come in and I'll do the show. So, but that's how it is right now. There's a lot of stuff going on with this COVID, and they even talking about how the vaccine isn't really protecting you anymore. I mean, now they're saying this Delta variant is as contagious as chickenpox. So, you can get it and spread it, and, it's all over the place. So I understand what you're saying, Tim. I mean, people say they got vaccinated and they walk around without a mask on, and you don't know what the status of anybody is. So it's kind of iffy out here. And I don't think we're gonna get shutdowns, but I know mask mandates are coming back. So I mean, who knows what's going to happen with the film industry? And so Scarlett Johannsen is suing because Disney went and showed their movie on the platform, but if the theaters are shut down, what else can they do? So I mean, they've already pushed this thing off for a year, more than a year. So I mean, they got business to do. So she got money from the streaming services. So I mean, I understand that there's an argument, but we'll get to that too.
No, I was gonna say, but let me just add in 2 points, because this is new information I just got within the last hour or so. One of my closest friends is Dr. Ivan Walks, who is a national public health official, right? He's the former chief medical officer for the nation's capital. He's done Nightline, he's done Oprah. So, he's the dude. He's not Fauci, but he knows Fauci quite well. So he was sharing the information that you just talked about the Delta variant. And he told me also, I think the other one that's coming, that's after this, is going to be the Lambda variant. So we were sitting there going, wow. So he talked about how contagious the Delta variant is, that, unlike the current COVID-19, the Delta variant, as you said, is so contagious. He said a better analogy is to think about if the current COVID-19 is 20, you get 20 germs on you, you may able to, this vaccination we have, or what they've come up with, can fight that off. He's saying the Delta variant is 200 times. I was like 10 times stronger than that. So he said, you imagine getting 200 particles on you, and your immune system doesn't know what to do with all that stuff coming at you at one time, right? So that's number one. The second thing that I heard this morning that was really distressing is that in Wilson's Empire State, there's been rumors of people buying COVID cards, right? Like, I'm not going to get immunized, but I'm going to go out and buy a card and show that I've had the vaccine. And then people who are buying cards are coming down with COVID because it's that secular kind of karma that comes when you're out there doing dirt. That dirt comes back on you. So to answer your original question, when you asked me, Wilson, when you talked about people being vaccinated, I'm like, yeah, you can say you're vaccinated. I don't know if you vaccinated or not. And and then the other part, I'm sorry, I left out one more thing, is that I was told when you get the initial shot, whether it's Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, or Moderna, that it has like a 6-month cycle of that it really is strong to kind of help fight off stuff. But after 6 months, you're gonna probably need a booster. Now I'm lucky because I think I got my shot around April or May. So even if we're talking about going to Canada in September, I'm in a good space. But everybody's not in the same space. And when you're talking about your personal health, Wilson was talking about wanting to hang out later on after the show. If Wilson feels that, Wilson's got to make Wilson decisions, right? Tim's got to make Tim's decisions. Charles got to make Charles' decisions. So my point is when we're talking about this, I put this as a talking point because Wilson's in New York, Charles and I are down here in DC, right? So when we're going to screenings, you've got to figure out what your level of comfort is. Like, and last Sunday, Wilson, I went to the movies because I had to see a bunch of movies that we needed to review for around town. I sat through 3 straight movies. I had a mask on the whole time. I was the only guy in the theater with a mask on, but I was cool because I heard coughing. I heard all kinds of stuff happening, and I was not comfortable. I was like tightening my joint up.
You know what? It's your decision on what you want to do.
You're right.
I certainly don't want to do this whole show on COVID. Hopefully, we got a lot
no,
of
we're not. No, we're not. We're not. This is the start. We're not. But go ahead, Wilson.
You know, like I said, people are going to decide what they're going to want to decide. You know, I think we've all experienced a year of doing what we needed to do in order to survive Zoom, pivoting different things. You know, it's your decision. That's the end of the day. You know, you say there's another variant coming out. It's like, oh, it's almost like if you live in Florida, which hurricane's coming this season? You know what I'm saying? You got to be prepared for it. You know, you make your decisions from there. You know, so that's all I can say. It's like, hey, you know, I'm going out. You know, I'm home for the most part. You know, so like if I'm going to get that 2-hour outside to get that walk, or I'm going to do that. You know, at the end of the day, we all get cabin fever. I'm going to come outside for a little bit. You know, so like I'm vaccinated. I'm certainly wearing a mask. You know, you are got to be smart enough to know what you need to be in. And like I said, you don't have to go to the movies, and they can say, hey, you don't have to review it, and then you have to pivot to what's going to work for you.
You're right. All right. So having said that, let's get back to the Scarlett Johannsen piece, because I think Charles is missing a huge point of this, which is another reason why I wanted to talk about this. Johannsen is going through what Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins went through when Wonder Woman came out last fall. Why everybody on Warner Brothers, you know, all of the actors who were in Warner Brothers films, when they found out early this year that those films are going to HBO Max, were upset, because in those contracts that they've signed that they're getting points based on what the films are making in the box office, right? So if you take the film out of the box office, or you're leaving it in theaters, but you're also streaming it at the same time, you're cutting into the money that actors make. And Scarlett Johannsen has a really good point, because historically, we all know that Disney has made somewhere in the neighborhood of between $23 to $24 billion on the MCU alone. So those movies make money in the theaters. And the fact that they put Black Widow simultaneously on Disney Plus's platform when they put it in theaters severely hampered that film. That film is at like $300 million worldwide. And all three of us look in the mirror and know that there's what Marvel movie we've seen that's only made $300 million worldwide.
Well, I'm saying, like, you got to take perspective now that no movie is going to be $1 billion like right away. If Fast 9 should have been the first one to be out the gate to make that much money. So that's the benchmark. The benchmark is Fast 9, then Marvel. You know, and when Fast 9 came out before Black Widow, you see how far they're going. Okay, you know, and Universal has no streaming platform.
Right.
You're saying? So you have to see like what Fast 9 is doing, and to see like, okay, I think they're near 600 million, which is still good. But you know, Disney is a family-oriented studio. A lot of their products are for families, and you could have held back. And Scarlett can say, well, somebody should say, go talk to Chris Nolan. Last year, he wanted to be so headstrong and be like, nah, I want my movies in theaters this year, yada, yada, yada. And what happened? No one went to go see it. At this point right now, no one's talking about it now that it's on HBO Max. You say, hey, nobody's talking about that film. So last thing Scarlett would have wanted is to movie come out, nobody sees it, nobody talks about those performances, then everybody sees it on Disney Plus and it gets like a second life, but you make no money out of it. You know, at the end of the day, granted, you're not going to make the money you thought you were going to make when you first signed on. But this is, like as you mentioned, an epidemic. So at the end of the day, is it about making money or is it about being seen? You know, a lot of people are going to see your product and talk about it, but, you know, they're not, you know, and it's not a gender thing. You know, I see everybody wants to spin off and make different type of stories. And even so, even with us, these things happen all the time. You're getting a lot of lawsuits here and there. You know, now I'm hearing crazy rumors about like, oh, Tom Hiddleston was told that Loki was going to be in theaters, you know, and I'm like, really? Come on, folks. You know, I just saw Paramount pull out Clifford the Big Red Dog because they were like, nah, we're not going to. I'm like, come on, really? You know,
What
We
Wilson?
go with what we go with what's out there. It is what it is, and we just keep on moving. There's gonna be product left and right. We can decide what to see.
No, but I'm saying I think the point, and maybe I'm not articulating it correctly, so I'm gonna try it again, right? I think what when Scarlett Johannsen shot Black Widow, she probably shot that in 2019 because it was supposed to have been a 2020 release, right? So at the time, this is pre-pandemic. Nobody knew about, possibly things going on streaming services. So in these contracts, Denzel Washington, same piece when he did what was it, the little things or whatever that film was earlier this year. So none of these guys knew in advance, right? Now you saw Patty Jenkins. What Warner Brothers had to do with Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot is that they stroked a check for $10 million each, and then they kind of put the movie on the platform. And then like what it did. It almost looks to me, Wilson, or feels like to me, Charles, that moving forward, especially if you're a part of the Warner Brothers family or the Marvel family, where they're going to use these dual platforms now and put stuff on the streaming service as well as put it in the theaters, that you're going to have to compensate these actors, because if their contracts that they signed initially, which I believe they are based on receipts coming out, like any profit sharing agreements or points from the films from what it makes on the box office end, the box office end is going to be impacted because of where we are right now. And these services and these studios, kind of girding themselves by having a Disney Plus, by having Peacock, by having HBO Max, by having some of these services. So I understand on both sides why Scarlett Johansson is like, y'all messing with my money, but just write her a check. Do the same thing that Warner Brothers did in their case. Just write them a check.
Yeah, here's the thing, though.
Bunch of checks.
As easy as it is to say that, obviously Scarlett can't be the only one, and so as easy as it is to write just Scarlett, you can't just write Scarlett a check, because if you do that for one, as the theory goes,
all of them,
gotta do for all, and if they're not bringing in money like that, they're not about to bleed dry. You say it's like, it's, at the end of the day, it's like, oh, Scarlett, and granted, she's probably getting the biggest check, but then you got everybody else, taking that, and then you got to move forward to like upcoming movies that are coming out. You say
Cumberbatch, you got Tom Holland. I mean, you got all these Marvel films coming, and again, we don't know. Things may settle down. There may be a less emphasis on Disney Plus, more of an emphasis back in theaters. Who knows, Wilson? We've seen a lot over the last year and a half. We don't know.
Well, the things that I've heard two things. First of all, I heard that Emma Stone is thinking about pulling out a lawsuit herself over Cruella, because she's in the same boat. Now that Scarlett has opened up the floodgates, there's going to be a lot of people to do this. And now Disney can't go with innuendo. They're reconsidering the whole simultaneous launch process. So we may not see Shang-Chi in Disney Plus right away. It's going to be a theatrical release, and with a showing on Disney Plus maybe 2 weeks down the line. So I mean, they're already contemplating changing all of that because of this lawsuit. Yeah. So
I like to go with so let it be written, so let it be said. You say, so at the end of the day, it's like all the stuff is innuendos. I'm not gonna go through what people are saying on it. Like, everybody wants to make, sometimes it's wonders, like when the media has nothing to talk about, we don't want to spend a whole hour on this, because I've seen people do this. It's like, there's nothing else going on. It's like, okay, there's a lot of product out there of stuff. Let's go with what's out there. You say, like, let's give some shows, some love to things that people can go see. Not to worry what's out there. Like you got Space Jam, did very well its opening weekend, dropped afterwards because everybody's now watching it on HBO Max. So like all this stuff is about money, and until for the three of us, it ain't coming to any of our pockets. So
what it tells me is that Scarlett Johansson will not return as Black Widow in the MCU. This is
well, she wasn't expected it. She remember her character died already.
I mean, but this is comic book universe. Anything can happen. Anybody can come back for any reason. So there was always this slight hope that she may come back in another version, or somehow with all the multiverse stuff that she may come back. This is letting me know that she is truly done. If she wasn't truly done with the MCU, she would never have filed this lawsuit. So
you know why she's done just like Robert Downey Jr. Because to bring those guys back, you know, Robert Downey Jr. Remember when he was ready to leave, what did they do? We're gonna give you $50 million, and then that's it. You know, at the end of the day, to bring Scarlett back, remember you just paid her $20 million for Black Widow. You know, to come to just for being in the movie.
yeah,
Say just to bring her back into another one. You know, you might as well just get somebody else new, which is what they're doing with all the Shang-Chi. You never hear some of these actors. You're like, okay, we're just cutting them a check for, you know, 20,000. 20,000 better than 20 mil. You know what I'm saying? You know, so like Marvel's playing it smart. You're like, okay, let's get these unknowns to be in Black Panther. Like, oh, Mike Colaco out. We ain't giving her $1 million. You know, how much did you get from HBO for your show? Okay, we'll give you.
Wow. All right, so a couple of things for Wilson, right? Because this is the second show we've done where we try to hit on issues that are business related. Wilson does not like the business related aspect about business. He's like, man, we ain't gonna spend a whole hour on this. That's what shows do, Wilson. We have conversations.
But there's content. There's a lot of content out there.
We won't get to the content, man. Let us get this out because the public needs to understand these things coming from an insider perspective. Wilson Morales, whether you choose to acknowledge it or not, you're an insider, sir. You're a person who's a critic who does.
What's next on the plate? What is next on the plate, sir?
Wow, man. So much hate, man. So basically,
wrap it up.
Wilson's telling me wrap it up. All right, man. Well, what's next on the plate is we're actually about 25 minutes into our show so far. We got movies this week, and I think it's interesting that I wanted to talk. We got 4 of them because I completely forgot about 9 Days. And I wanted to talk about that one. Wilson, you saw it at Sundance, right? And I saw it a couple of days ago. Charles, have you had a chance to see it yet?
Have not seen it.
Man, okay, Wilson, give me a brief rundown because I got some thoughts on 9 Days because I thought it was a wonderful departure for Winston Duke, right? So I've watched him in several high-profile films. This was a smaller, more intimate performance by him. And I thought what was also most important about the movie is kind of, you know, I hate to use the phrase the spiritual aspect, but I look at it from a standpoint where, you know, we kind of look at the news and we kind of live our lives on a day-to-day basis. And what 9 Days is showing you is how precious life is that you have these 5 souls who are vying for an opportunity to be born. And I thought that it was a really wonderful, refreshing take and look at, and this performance that he gives, this really nuanced, kind of smaller, muted performance. I thought Zazie Beetz' character, I forget what her name in the film was, but I thought her character was pretty well articulated. It's a slow film. I don't think it's for everybody. I'll say that. I don't think it's for everybody. But I think, no, I'm not saying that to be negative. I'm saying some people just don't like these smaller, slower films that take a minute to kind of bubble up. Coda, which Wilson talked about earlier, is another film that's not necessarily as down as this film is, but I thought also is a very upbeat, feel-good story. I like 9 Days. I would give it, if I had to review it, I'd give it a B. I thought it was really solid. I thought Duke is solid. I thought Beetz is solid. I thought the story content, what it's about, the concept, you don't see many original concept. That to me feels like, not necessarily it's the first time we've ever seen it, but it's packaged in a way that it feels new and original and fresh. What did you think about it, Wilson?
There was an old movie in the 80s starring Timothy Hutton and Kelly McGillis called Made in Heaven.
Right.
You know, it's about true souls who are in love of heaven, and then they get reborn in earth and have to find a way to get to, you know, if they can find a way back to each other while on earth in different bodies. 9 Days, obviously, it's about these individuals who are meeting one guy. He has to decide which one of them is worthy to be born, you know. And you go, like you said, what is the meaning of life? And they all have to explain it to him. He's like, you may not be so ready yet, you know. And like you mentioned, it's not for everybody. It's a slow movie, but it's patient. Sometimes, you know, for people, American audiences, you know, they saw Winston Duke. They were introduced to Winston Duke in Black Panther. Then they saw him in Us, you know. So it's sort of like you don't know his range yet, you know, but because you've seen it in the commercial films. You know, this is an independent film. And same thing for Zazie Beetz. You know, it's like a lot of people know her because of Atlanta, and then she was, I think, in the second Deadpool. I could be wrong. Was it Deadpool?
Yes, you're right.
And yep.
And so, like, you know, to see them play out these roles, you know, and Ed Sonoda, who's the director, and he's well known for doing commercials and short films and music video. This is his first feature film. I think he did a pretty solid job because he's known for his visualness, you know, and storytelling. And, you know, he wrote this story. And I guess you mentioned, you can find similar stories in a way, you know, but the way it's played out is what sells, because not only do you have good performances from these two, you've got Benedict Wong, you know, you've got Bill Skarsgård, you know, I can't remember everybody in there, but they all play a role to the, you know, you don't know as you're watching it who's going to end up being chosen, you know, so like that's an interesting take. And so I definitely would give it a B, but I guess, as I mentioned before, it's not for everybody, depending on what you're going to go see. You know, it's like you got to be patient, you got to see for what it is. And sometimes you have to understand the filmmaker in order to get an idea as to what you're going to go in for. You know, it's a Sony Pictures Classic movie. They're not known to be doing like all action. Right. You say, like, if you do your homework, you're like, oh, it's Sony Pictures Classic. You know, it's a Noda. You know, it's a small film. It's like, you know, maybe because it's a small film and it's not a studio film would have been, a producer would have been like, yo, you got to wrap this up, man. We're running out of time. You know, but a small film, you can take your time, you can make your movie, and let's see who's going to buy what you just made, which is what Sony Pictures Classic did.
Got it. All right. So 9 days is I'm not sure if it's wide released.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
It's in New York and LA this weekend. It'll go wide next weekend.
Got it. All right. So on to our next film. Now, since Charles didn't get a chance to see this film, I'm going to pick a film that I know that Charles did see. And I want to talk to you guys about Stillwater. Now, I did not go to the screening of Stillwater, and two people that I respect highly, well, actually three, told me, Tim, you know, you made the right decision not seeing that film. So I'm just saying, Wilson, apparently you saw Stillwater, right?
Yes, I did.
All right. So Charles Kirkland, we will lead off with you. I know you saw this film. Talk to us about Stillwater, the latest film from Matt Damon.
Well, I don't know if I was one of the ones that told you made a right decision, but I believe that this movie, this is Tom McCarthy in his worst, I think. It just didn't, the movie just fell flat for me. There was a lot of opportunities where, and here's the thing, you look at a Matt Damon movie where he's going to another country to save his daughter, and you think you're getting this action Jason Bourne type film, and this is not that film. I mean, when you see this film, you sit there and it's 2 hours and 20 minutes long, and it feels like 3, and it just drags and takes
wait, time out. See, you're burying the lead. What is this movie about? First of all, because you're telling us you don't like the movie. What is it? And tell the audience what it is.
Okay, so Matt Damon plays Bill Banks. He's an oil rig worker from Stillwater, Oklahoma. That's where you get the name Stillwater. And his daughter has been convicted in France of murdering her roommate. And so he goes out to visit her on one of his trips, and the daughter gives him information that can help her get out of jail. Nobody wants to do anything about it. Of course, the case has been done years ago, so he decides he's going to take on this assignment on his own, find this guy to free his daughter, and that's what the movie is about, essentially.
So you're basically saying that the movie, Tom McCarthy, who did Spotlight, which is why I'm laughing at you. You're talking about people going and expecting Jason Bourne. The guy that directed this Spotlight. You're not expecting Jason Bourne. At least I wouldn't. So
you're right. But I mean, if you don't look and see that this is a Tom McCarthy movie, you just see Matt Damon and you hear the description of the film, you're expecting something different. And until you get to the point where you say, oh, this is Tom McCarthy, I mean, how many people actually look at the director of a movie when they're going to see a movie. They look at the actor, they look at the title, they look at the description. They
See,
look
you asking that question to the wrong group. All three of us do.
Even the trailer for the movie portrays this as an action film, and it's not. So I mean, when you get to the theater, it's a little bit of a bait and switch. A lot of a bait and switch. You get in there, and this movie is a lot more pensive, a lot more contemplative, a lot slower than what you expect. And that just, I mean, and all the interactions, all the people in this, none of it really feels genuine. None of it, nobody you can buy into. It wasn't a good film for me. It wasn't a, and if you ask me, I think I gave it a D minus. It may have been a straight D, because I did appreciate the work that the little girl Maya did in the film. She was the one bright light in the whole thing. Her interaction with Bill, it kind of redeemed the movie a little bit, but not enough to where it was a good movie. So that's just my opinion.
Wilson, hold on a second. Wilson, yeah, our friend Charles went in looking for the Bourne continuation. He got a spotlight. He got an intense spotlight story. What did you think about this movie?
Well, Charles makes it seem like he went in there with the largest popcorn. He was like, "What is this?" He went in there like, "Yo, I'm excited. Whoa, Matt Damon. You know, yo, 1 hour into it, where the action at?" You know, as I said, like, you going in there and Tom McCarthy. I repeat, I just finished saying that. If you know what the director's about, you know, you know what you're going to get. And here's the thing. This story is a take off the Amanda Knox story. It's not the entire Amanda Knox story. For those who don't know, Amanda Knox in real life was convicted of killing her roommate and then was ultimately let go. She's back home. Now, what they did was take a little bit of that story and added more into it. What Charles left out is, in between Matt trying to figure a way to how to get his daughter out, he's developing a relationship with individuals that he's staying with. And there's more to the story than just that. And so the thing I found about this movie is they're like, hey, we've seen Matt do the action films, you know, and like I said, you know, this is something totally different. You know, now it's practically mostly him. You know, the other cast members in the film are not widely known to American audiences, unless, you know, we've seen Abigail Breslin in a few films, but Matt Damon is the big name. He's the main guy on a poster. He's the main guy in a trailer, you know, and so and I guess people are used to seeing him, and maybe Charles was bamboozled by the trailer, you know, and he went to, you know, he wanted to see something action. I'm like, it's Focus Features, buddy boy. They don't be doing action. I go, yo, all the answers were given to you like Password Plus. Focus Features, Tom McCarthy, Camille Colton. What more did you need to say? This is not going to be Jason Bourne. Had it been Jason Bourne, they would have said Universal Pictures. You know, this is a smaller scale. And like I said, it's one of the better non-action Matt Damon movies. You know, you can tell when you're watching, and I guess maybe all three of us are, and I'm maybe speaking as an insider, you know, we all know the ingredients are there. You know, maybe the average audience doesn't know, but, you know, the average audience doesn't pay attention to who the studio is, who the director is. So to your point, yes, you know, and maybe I haven't seen the trailer enough times to know whether or not it spelled action, action, action. But, you know, you walk in there, you're trying to see a story to say, hey, Matt Damon did a pretty good job, you know, because he had to immerse himself as a Oklahoma, somebody from Oklahoma. I was going to say Oklahomian, but I guess I don't want to butcher that word. And so, you know, and so, like, you know, he had to immerse himself in that world, and, you know, in the world of France, you know, because I actually spoke to him. He said his French is not that good just yet, but his character didn't have to speak all that well. But it's a good story. It's not an A. It's a little bit of a sit. They could have knocked off maybe 20, 25 minutes out of it. I certainly would not give it a D minus. I give it more like a solid B, you know, because it's a good story. If you know Tom McCarthy is a good writer, you saw what he did with Spotlight. Spotlight came out the gate and won Best Picture and got Sean McCarthy an Oscar for Best Screenwriter. So you got to give some respect in the guy's name. You know what I'm saying? Give him a little respect. The guy is an Oscar winner. He knows what he's writing. He's got a nominee like Matt Damon in the game.
But that doesn't make the guy bulletproof. That doesn't make
I didn't say bulletproof. You just went in there with blinders.
And on the scale of Tom McCarthy movies, this one is not. I mean, it's nowhere near Spotlight or anything.
Did you see Win-Win?
Yeah, I saw Win-Win, and Win-Win was much better than this.
Did you see The Station Agent?
Watch this, gentlemen.
I love The Station Agent. That's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Gentlemen,
let me ask you: Did you get your popcorn refund?
Wilson and Charles, this is a safe zone. We don't. This is a judgment-free zone. Charles is entitled to his D. Yeah. You're entitled to whatever number alphabet you came up.
Wait a minute. I'm looking at my social media. It says, "What is this clown talking about?" I'm just talking about.
Don't listen to everything, Wilson. Don't take it personal. Don't take it personal.
So wait a minute. Stillwater is in theaters. You make your determination between Wilson and Charles where you lie. So our next film that we're going to go to is another film. Wilson, did you get a chance to see The Green Knight?
Yes, I have.
Okay, cool.
Did you, Charles?
Charles did as well. So our next film, I will just say, is directed by David Lowery, who did Ain't Them Body Saints, Pete's Dragon for Disney, and then The Old Man and the Gun, and he also edited A Ghost Story. So I'm saying that because using the director test that we had, you don't know what you're getting out of The Green Knight, man.
Hey, Charles, did you go in there thinking you were going to see Excalibur?
Man, The Green Knight stars Dev Patel. I did not get a chance to see this when Charles went in my stead. I will start with Wilson Morales. What are your thoughts? Tell us first about The Green Knight, and then tell us what did you think about it.
The Green Knight is a poem based on the Arthur legend, in which now I'm blanking out on character names, where Dev Patel's character is given, and what's his name? Garwin. Yeah, and he's given an option where a knight comes in the middle of the round table, basically tells the guy, like, I challenge one of you guys to chop my head off, and in a year's time, I have to repay the favor. And so all the knights are like, ain't gonna be me, ain't gonna be me. Garwin, he's like, I'm gonna do it. You're saying, and so then he comes close to a year, he has to repay the favor, and in between that, he has to go on this long journey to discover, what it's about, and can he live with himself, if he has to sacrifice himself and so forth without giving so much away. It's directed by David Lowery, and like Tim just mentioned his credits. You don't know what you're gonna get, and a lot of people who know the lore of The Green Knight, it's a poem. And sometimes when you take a poem and you make it into a film, obviously you're gonna go through a lot of lengths, in terms of making it visually striking for an audience. It's one thing when you read it. It's another thing when now all of a sudden, like, you got to make a 2-hour movie out of this, and he's got Alicia Vikander in the movie, Oscar winner. He's got Joe Egerton in the film. I thought I think it sells on the production design and the story. I would give it more of a B-, only because there were moments in there where you're like, okay, he is definitely going on the journey, and I can go to the bathroom from here. But nevertheless, I don't know if the ending was satisfactory if you know the story, but there's a lot there, and I said before, it goes back when you start saying Arthur, you start thinking of all these Arthur films you've seen in the past, and they've all been action oriented, and they're all been, I think the closest thing you could probably say is maybe Excalibur, but to a lesser degree, not the Robin Hoods, not the other medieval films. And so Dev Patel, we've seen him grow from obviously Slumdog Millionaire, and he's done other films from there, and he carries himself well. But overall, I would say, it's a good story that needs to be watched patiently. you know. And like I said, there's moments where they could have been edited out. And I think that's where the fault lies in. The fault lies with the editing, because you have your story there. If you tighten it up a little bit more, you'd have a really good story. Charles?
Well,
Wow, I'm impressed that Wilson gave this movie a B minus, and essentially because I gave the movie the same thing. I thought it was a very uh, visual experience. I called it visual poetry because he really takes his time to give you the visuals of the poem, and you see him going through all these trials. Now, I think one of the things that Wilson didn't mention, or mentioned incorrectly, the challenge in the movie was just for any knight to strike the Green Knight, and that he would repay it. So Dev Patel's character gets in and he chops his head off, thinking, "What if I kill him? Then he doesn't have to. I don't have to worry about it." But homie grabs up his head and gets back on his horse and rides out, to the surprise of everyone. He doesn't kill him. So that's what really is the problem, is that he thought he was going to get away. Now he's going to have to give up his head because it's blow for blow. So I thought it was a really well done cinematography movie. I mean, if you're sitting there and you're watching this, you're looking at some beautiful, lush, gorgeous visuals. And yeah, the story is a little meandering, but that is the whole point of the poem. He's going through all these trials and tribulations to get to this point. And when he mentioned the ending, yeah, the ending is a little unsatisfactory, but I think it also inspires people to go and find out what the poem is about. So when you leave the theater, you're like, hey, what am I missing here? And I know a lot of people said the same thing, that they had to go and research the poem because this it's centuries old, and this is not the first treatment that the Green Knight has had. Sean Connery played the Green Knight way back in the 70s. So a lot of people, it's been around, like I said, a long time. I think the ending gives people the opportunity to say, hey, what did I miss? What does that mean? And sometimes, like you do, Tim, when you're looking at a Marvel movie and you're like, hey, what's inside here? What did I miss? Right. It's the same thing that he does with this film. I think it's a good film. I gave it a B minus. Don't go looking for all the action that you would expect in like Excalibur or any of these other fantasy adventure movies. It's a different thing, and it has its audience.
All right, so The Green Knight is in theaters. Wilson and Charles were complimentary of this one, so I think you can probably go. You got two critics here who like this movie, so there's a better chance than the previous movie when they were mixed. Now, our last movie, because Wilson has hit on a point that I always talk about a lot, that I think directors matter in films, right? And sometimes you'll find some films where you'll have some director that people aren't familiar with, and they're good storytellers and they're building. This next film we want to talk about, or I should say the final film, of course, which is Jungle Cruise, is directed by, and I was trying to get the correct pronunciation of his name. I think it's pronounced Jaume Collet Serra, who's the Spanish director, who's directed Jungle Cruise. His credits include House of Wax from 2005, Orphan from 2009, The Shallows, as well as Nonstop, Unknown, Run All Night, and The Commuter. So the fact that this guy is doing a Disney film, and I think he's also somebody they're looking at for Black Adam, which is...
No, he is directing Black Adam.
He did direct Black Adam. All right, so he is a very interesting choice to do this sort of film. And this is a film I did get a chance to see. The first thing that jumps out when I watch this film is that I remember watching The African Queen with Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn about 60 years ago. And the fact that, this is based on a ride that Disney has, but the kind of African Queenish vibe that it has, I was pleasantly surprised about the chemistry between Emily Blunt and Dwayne Johnson in the film. The story is kind of Pirate of Caribbean-esque to me, and it's kind of a very Disney story. Now, the fact that the director, it's a little darker, which probably makes sense looking at who they brought in to direct the film. It's not the typical kind of light Disney tale. It's got kind of an edge and a bite to it. I thought, I forget the guy's name that plays not her brother, but I guess the guy who's her traveling companion. I think he is probably the best showcase in the film between the three of these characters. The two, you know what you're gonna get with Emily Blunt. We've seen her in Edge of Tomorrow. Dwayne Johnson has charisma off the charts, but I love what his character brought to it. Paul Giamatti in a kind of a throwaway role in this film. It's a typical Disney story that's a popcorn film that's not necessarily bad, especially during the times that we have right now, which are stories that you want to bring people back to the theaters. Jungle Cruise is a really well-shot film, very entertaining interaction between, as I said, the two leads, Johnson and Blunt. The character, what's his name, Wilson? I know you're looking it up. The guy that's who plays the companion of Emily Blunt, who I told you I thought was really, really
Jack
good.
Whitehall.
Jack Whitehall, who
Thank
played McGregor, his brother.
Yes, Jack Whitehall is really good. You know, not the best Disney film, far from the worst Disney film. If I had to give it a grade, I'd go C+, B-. I thought Jungle Cruise, if you're gonna watch it either at home or in the big screen, it's worth your money. It's a wonderful 2 hours of escapism, not too deep. That's what I thought. I'll start with Charles. Charles, what did you think about Jungle Cruise?
I tended to agree with you. I think Jack Whitehall is a great comedic foil for this film, where the other two are so driven. He's kind of not so driven, and it more relatable to one of us who would be like, yeah, what are we doing here? So I enjoyed his role. I think, again, yes, Emily Blunt and Dwayne Johnson are terrific together. I can see where they've laid out groundwork for a franchise for the way this is going, and I think it's much better than The Haunted Mansion, another movie that was made off of a Disney product theme ride. It's not as great as Pirates, but I think they did a great job in bringing this tale to life and bringing the elements from the Jungle Cruise ride of Disney into this movie. I thought it worked well. I gave it a straight B. I didn't subtract any for the nonsensical things. Now, and also, like you said, it's an edgier movie. So if you're taking younger children, there are some parts that may be a little troubling for them, especially when you see Aguirre, who's composed of snakes. You know, his character. So, you know, it's got its bite, like you said, and I enjoyed it a lot, though. I think it's a very entertaining family movie.
Wilson Morales.
What
is that? What you like?
No, here's the thing. I enjoyed the movie. It's a throwback. You know, I start thinking back to, you mentioned the Humphrey Bogart movie. I'm thinking more like Romancing the Stone and National Treasure. You know, we've seen these movies where it's guy meets girl, or vice versa, and then they're off to a journey, and there's always a sidekick. Remember National Treasure? They had that sidekick guy on there. Yeah. And then obviously in Romancing the Stone, I'm thinking maybe Danny DeVito. You know, there's always somebody there, you know, and so it's like you have the points. Now you just got to step in it, you know, and it's The Rock, it's Emily Blunt. I think Emily Blunt was the funniest thing that kept it going, you know. You had some wasteful performances though. I'm like, what is Paul Giamatti doing here? You know, having seen Paul Giamatti do what he do in the last 5 years, I was like, dude, did you need a check? Like, I'm like, you did nothing up in here. I was like, wow, like you could have got anybody to play that role.
I had a friend of mine say they think that there was a lot that ended on the cutting room floor with Giamatti because he was way too big a star for that.
Yeah.
What he did.
Yeah, it was like with what he did, it was like, you know, okay, it is what it is. And like you look at the director, you know, and it's kind of surprising because, you know, he's directed, like he's gone from horror to more drama, suspense when you see what the films he's done with Liam Neeson. And so it's like maybe trying to combine both, but also being reined in by the Disney producers. It's like, remember, this is a Disney movie. He was saying, so you can't go darkity dark. He says like, this is a Disney movie, and obviously, The Rock liked him enough to say, hey, listen, I want him directing me in Black Adam, but it's got the romance, it's got the adventure in there, it's got the cinematography and obviously the CGI that works. And this is definitely meant for the big screen. This is something, anytime you get CGI and production of this value, you got to see it in theaters. Granted, I know we talked earlier about all this, but some of these movies are meant for the big screen. And there are movies you see, and you're like, I could have watched this at home. And then movies you say, you know what, I wouldn't mind seeing this on a bigger 100-feet screen as opposed to like the 60-inch or 40-inch that we all have at home. And so like, it plays well. You know what you're gonna get. It's by the books, and it's a matter of like, hey, listen, it's a new interpretation. And I like what Dwayne Johnson brings. So sometimes it's like, you know what you're gonna get with his movies in the last few years that you've seen him in. He's playing by the books. You go back to when he started out with Walking Tall, and even when he had his hair and Be Cool, to now he's the big action star. To like, you know what? I don't need it to be in Fast franchise. I can do my own. And if this movie takes off, maybe he'll have another Jungle Cruise 2.
Wow.
Tim?
Wow. No, I'm with you, man. So basically, what grade did you give Wilson? Because you didn't give me a grade.
Am I hearing something? Or is that somebody else?
Yeah, that's some music, man. So that was me, man. My apologies. So I'm saying, Wilson, you didn't give it a grade.
I would probably give it a B plus. Definitely a B plus, because it's entertaining. It gives you what you want.
Wow, you had me scared. I thought he was going low on us.
Nah, man, you're the only one.
I can't believe you and Charles agreed on the last two movies after that whole kind of
because Charles didn't get his money back. He didn't get his popcorn money back.
After the Stillwater debacle, man. Boy, I thought
Charles is like, I'm ready. I've got to go. I'm waiting for that. And like, I'm still waiting. What's going on? There's a moment in Stillwater. We thought he was gonna go Jason Bourne. He was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
No, but it's interesting, man. I've grown in this business to understand that I feel a certain way about stuff. And sometimes I'll see movie reviews and I'm like, I don't understand what you thought you were watching, or, you going in and you got it. And I think, Wilson, the reason why I spotlighted every director after that is because that's a talking point that I've always had, that directors make movies. I mean, if you look at, and we talk about directing styles, right? So I always get on somebody like Tim Story, who I've never interviewed Tim Story and I've never met him. I have a great deal of respect for him because it takes a special person to have that many $100 million movies. But I just don't think that if you ever said, give me what's a Tim Story movie, Tim Story's films just are generic. They don't have any style. Like, I know what a Tyler Perry movie is. I know what a Spike Lee movie is. I know what a Christopher Nolan movie is. I know what a Steven Spielberg movie is, and on and on and on. I'm just saying, whatever your style is, Antoine Fuqua makes muscular, male, testosterone-driven films, right? You know that going in. So I think if you know a director's style, it gives you sort of an impression, which is why, to Wilson's point, I am shocked at you, Charles, that if they said it's a Tom McCarthy film, you went in there thinking it was going to be some action. It's Tom McCarthy, man. That's what he does.
Okay. In fairness, you've applied that rule to Tom McCarthy, but you can't apply that rule to the other two directors we talked about, David Lowery or
with David Lowery, I read you his credits. David Lowery is all across the board. You don't know what you're gonna get with David Lowery.
Exactly.
So that's a good example. But the guy that directed Jungle Cruise, he makes edgier films, right? So despite the fact that it was a Disney film, it was a Disney film with some edge. So I mean, Charles, again, Wilson and I can have this conversation with you and give you 10 directors and you'll have 10 ideas what you're going to get going in. There's always a wild card director, a guy who tries to direct across the board, a la a Tim Story. I get back to Tim's story again because I'm like, dude, just pick a style, man. Have a style. Give me something like Malcolm Lee. Like if I say Malcolm Lee to you, what kind of movie is Malcolm Lee going to make? Anybody?
He's going to give you an ensemble film,
Comedy.
Because that's mostly what he's known for, some, especially you got to think about it. If he writes it on his own, it's heartfelt, or to what he's doing with The Best Man. If he's just a director of hire, they're hiring him because he knows how to work with an ensemble and he knows how to add comedy, which is what you see when he did Barbershop 3 and when you see what he did with Undercover Brother. And it's, and forget about the last film, Space Jam. It's like, okay, it's animated and it's Warner Brothers telling them, you got to add Bugs Bunny in here. You got to add Batman and Robin in here.
I mean, it's still an ensemble film.
But wait a minute, all right, because here's a good example. If I'm sitting in a room right now, the three of us are sitting in a room and we want to make a story that's about race, that it might have some satirical fantasy elements, who would I hire in Hollywood right now if I wanted to make a movie about race?
Spike Lee.
Or I'm just saying, man.
Or Ava DuVernay.
Ava DuVernay. I was thinking about
Spike Lee, Ava DuVernay, Barry Jenkins.
Bingo. So that's my point. When you go in with certain directors, there's a certain expectation of what they've done previously. So again, Charles, you're not going to live this one down, man. I can't believe you said you thought
okay. I'm not the only one who said this movie was a stinker. So
no. It's not that it's bad, but I'm just saying.
What is it that Charles Barkley says? You need to go swimming.
Wilson Morales has been taking shots all day, but we're gonna wrap it up right here. We have 4 movies in theaters this week. I think across the board, we thought that even though it's not for everybody, that 9 Days is a movie that deserves an audience. You should check it out. It may appeal to you. If it doesn't appeal to you, my feelings aren't hurt, and neither are Wilson's. As it relates to the latest film from the director of Spotlight, I have, again, Wilson, I have heard 3 bad reviews. Yours was the first good one I heard. So I will check Stillwater out and see if it appeals.
It's Matt Damon. Matt Damon deserves the respect of you going to see his movie.
I mean, I like Matt Damon. Matt Damon's a cool dude, so I will check his movie out. The Green Knight but the Jungle Cruise, both of you guys gave it a B across the board. So these are your choices this week. As we tell you every week in closing, please see something good at the movies. You got several choices this week. And then next week, we're going to talk about one of my favorite summer popcorn films of the year. You don't want to miss next week's show. But until then, we will see you guys on the other side. Wilson Morales, always a pleasure, my brother. Charles Kirkland Jr., man, we got to work on your director game, bro.
Yeah, I'm gonna mail you some caramel popcorn.
Until next week, man, we out. We'll see you guys on the other side. Take care.